Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Anyone who is watching, I'm going to give it, oh, don't fall phone. I'm going to give it just a minute so that people can filter in. But yeah, so just a reminder, I'm going to put this up here. Trigger warnings for the fic. They're going to be above my head the whole time. So, yes. Hey, Log, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Yeah, so we're just continuing where we left off. So today we're doing chapters 5 through 6 of the Children's Rebellion. And I started a little bit earlier today so that hopefully I could take my time and not be rushed because the library that I'm streaming from closes at midnight. So if I start streaming exactly at 11, I have to kind of rush to make sure I'm done by midnight. But I started like 20 minutes early today, so hopefully we can get some time to just sort of process what happens, because this fic is a lot. So anyway, let's see. Hi, Code Panda. I see you. Gonna be great to listen to while I finish today. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on finals. I should be studying for that. However, I just finished writing a 5-page English paper, so I feel like I deserve this time to just enjoy streaming and reading fan fiction and all of that. So, yeah, but good luck studying for finals. I know that can be rough. So, but all right, let's see. We've been going for 3 minutes. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes just to let people filter in. And we'll see how this goes. Wonder, can I edit? I don't know if I can. Or I might be able to. I designed a thumbnail for whatchamacallit. I designed a thumbnail for the live stream on YouTube, and I don't know why. I just haven't put it on yet. Okay, fanfic thumbnail. Perfect. No, it's not. Okay. Perfect. I'll have to go through. Do I like BTS? I can't say I listen to a ton of their work. I'll be honest. I've listened to, I like Dynamite and I like their remix of Savage Love. So those are really the only 2 songs of theirs I've listened to. But yeah, so I can't really say I like those songs. But I don't really like, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan. That's probably what I would say. So, yep. All right, let's see. How long have we been going? We've been going for 5 minutes. All right. So I think this is probably a good time to start. All right. So just a reminder, if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube right now, on your screen are the trigger warnings for this fic. For those of you on TikTok, I will read them out to you right now. They are yelling/shouting, racism/xenophobia, blood and gore, suicidal thoughts/attempt, panic attacks, manipulation, possible minor character death, possible major character death, murders/executions, child abuse, drug abuse, starvation, needles, mass genocide, and shootings, and torture and emotional manipulation. So if any of those topics make you uncomfortable, please leave the stream wherever you're watching now, because those topics will come up in this fic. For those of you who missed last stream, currently we are following Tommy, who is an avian hybrid. He just got rescued from a space prison by the crew of the L'Manberg, which is essentially just like everyone who's on Origins SMP, minus the newer members, because this fic was published before they joined. And he met Purpled, who he has a past with, and they are going to talk to Wilbur because they need to inform people that Badman is not in fact dead, but is in fact very alive and needs to be stopped. I think that's like the SparkNotes version of where we're at. So anyway, if you have any questions, I have chat open. Feel free to ask and I'll get to it as soon as I reach like a good pausing point. But without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, and we're reading chapters 5 and 6 today. So, yes. All right. Chapter 5. Yeah, bitch, a mass murderer isn't dead, and I didn't tell you because of my angsty past. Trying to avoid sadness is trying to avoid life. Maxime Lagasse. I don't recognize that name. It's about Chroma, Purple choked out. Wilbur looked at him worryingly. Are you sure you don't want to see bad, Purpled? The chief communications officer asked carefully. Purpled shook his head stubbornly. I've seen him enough, he muttered. I have to keep moving forward. His eyes flashed to Tommy before going back to his hands. It's just practice, Will. Just practice. Sounds more like a pain to me, Wilbur said. You have no idea, Purple muttered, scrubbing at his eyes with the corner of his uniform sleeve. Anyway, Chroma, he's... Purple choked on his own words, and Tommy nudged him with his elbow. He's alive, Tommy spat, forcing the words out of his throat. Wilbur's brown eyes widened, and Tommy amended his statement. I think. No, Wilbur said, more in denial than disbelief. No, he's dead. They're only dead if you see the body, Tommy said. He's not dead. I've seen him. You what? In passing, Tommy lied. It's not important. He's a murderer. I think it is. Look, mister, I'm so smart. I was in a prison full of war criminals and poor attempts at spies, Tommy said. I saw a shit ton of people in my time. And one of them was Chroma? Wilbur asked dubiously. Yes, Tommy said. Well, I think. I think that's good enough for me, Purple said. Just contact command and tell them to restart their search. At what? The word of a child? At the word of the survivor of the HMS Fran, he corrected. I'm not some nobody. Wilbur sighed. Look, kid, I believe you. Phil believes you, but command won't, not without evidence of who you are. I have evidence, he said. Purple turned to him questioningly. You do? Yeah, he said. Clementine? She's not going to answer you, Wilbur snorted. She was programmed to listen to the crew, and you are not. Yes, Tommy? Tommy immensely enjoyed the dumbstruck look that befell Wilbur's face. Hey, Clementine, who am I? You were born on star date 98870.28 on the HMS Fran on a Terran Saturday, Tommy. As a child, yep, causing mass mayhem. Do not be discouraged, though, for the crew loved you and the other children. I was saddened to hear of your death, though when the chief operations officer contacted the ship and I recognized your voice, I was as gladdened as I could be as artificial intelligence. Thanks, he muttered. Clementine remembers you, Wilbur noted. That I do, Lieutenant Soot. Captain Filza dismissed wiping my databanks of the HMS Fran, for he wanted to hear what happened to them. I remember Tommy quite well. The avians were an enjoyable group of people. Unfortunately, you are one of the last of them. Tommy closed his eyes, trying not to cry as Sam and Puffy's faces filled his peripheral, laughing as they tossed him up or fed him chocolate pudding. You remember my parents then? They were wonderful people. He knew that Clementine would keep his secret, that she was currently keeping his secret. Thanks, Clementine. Of course, Tommy. You're not going to start crying, are you? Wilbur asked him, brushing his brown hair out of his eyes. No, he snapped. Doesn't cry. Did you just speak about yourself in the third person? He does that, Purple said. Wilbur sighed. Well, I suppose there could be worse coping methods due to traumatic experiences. I'll write you up to talk to Bad. What? Wait, is Bad some kind of chiropractor or therapist or some shit? He said. No. You sort of have to see someone so they can check your mental health before you enter fleet school, Purple pointed out, helpful as usual. Sometimes. See, that's why I don't want to attend fleet school, he said. I think you should, Wilbur said. I don't give a shit about your fucking opinion, Tommy snarled, his fists clenched. Wilbur blinked at him. Tommy, you have wanted this for years. Think of the person you could be, the people you could save. He pointed the finger at the ceiling angrily. Shut the fuck up, Clementine. You're not helpful, as usual. I was designed to be helpful, and I was designed to kill people, he said. So shut up. Otherwise, I'll find your little black box and rip it out myself. Usually I'd get mad at you for threatening Clementine, but I get the feeling that you're just ranting and wouldn't actually do jack shit, Wilbur sighed. Only 4 more subjects to go for tonight. Good luck, Locke. Good luck. Remember to pace yourself. Don't exhaust yourself trying to do too much at once. I'm going to go send that message to command so that they can be on the lookout, just in case. Oh, Tommy said, do you believe me? I never said I didn't, Wilbur pointed out. I don't know you, Tommy. You seem like a childish gremlin with a penchant for murder and threats. He held up a hand as Tommy opened his mouth angrily. You also seem like a nice kid that saved Tubbo and gave us some valuable information on the HMS Fran. Do I trust you? No, but I trust him. He gestured to Purple. He trusts you. Thanks, Purple said dryly. Wilbur inclined his head in their direction before getting up to leave. Wait, Tommy said. You can't tell anyone else. Yeah, actually don't, Purple said. That's against regulations, Wilbur said, his hand next to the door. Need I remind you, Lieutenant Soot, that earlier today you broke Regulation 34.5B4, in which it states, Yeah, Wilbur said. Still, what about, I'll tell Rambo myself, Purple said, but the others don't need to know, especially not Ponk and Puns. Why? Wilbur whispered. This changes everything. It's not ours to deal with, Purple said. It is actually. Just don't, okay, Purple said. I'm sorry, Purple, but I have to, Wilbur said. It's part of my job. Wait, Tommy said as the door slid open with a breath of air. Wilbur turned to look at him, a tired glow filling his eyes for half a second as his phantom half glimmered just under the surface. Tommy wasn't much pleased. Wilbur, you owe me a favor. I'm calling it now. What? Wilbur said. I literally met you a few hours ago, gremlin child. Tommy snorted at the term of endearment. Nah, you met me 7 years ago. I did? Yeah, he said, unfazed and shoving his hand in his pockets. Even Purple looked curious as he swung his magenta eyes to gaze at him. Wilbur Soot, 17, messy brown hair and a broken guitar. Swore up and down you were a musician, but the arachnids didn't care, because of course they didn't. Wilbur looked positively horrified by that point. You were there accidentally, on a mission to Snowshire, was it? Snowchester, Wilbur corrected absentmindedly. You're him. Surprise flickered in his eyes. It wasn't really a question, so Tommy nodded jerkily. You didn't even tell me that, Purple complained. You guys haven't known each other that long, Wilbur said, looking confused. Why would he tell you? Purple shrugged, glancing at Tommy nervously. Anyway, you're that kid that hacked me out. Yeah, he drawled. I am. See a favor. I thought that was out of the goodness of your heart, Wilbur said, eyeing him with a slight frown. Tommy laughed. When you describe me, big man, good ain't a word you use. He paused theatrically. Cynical, dishonest, vulgar, self-obsessed. One might even say you have a superiority complex, Wilbur pointed out helpfully. Tommy rolled his eyes. Yeah, whatever, bitch, he snorted. It doesn't matter. Technically, you owe me a favor. He crossed his arms. So don't tell them about this. Wilbur blinked at him. Several expressions crossed his face. Anger, annoyance, and a bit of respect. Fine, he said, finally, and walked through the closed door, his eyes flashing slightly as he activated his phantom form. Clementine, make sure he's not here, Tommy said after a few seconds of silence, sitting down heavily on the couches. The lieutenant has withdrawn from his phantom form and can currently be observed proceeding his way down hallway 1A6N. Do you require any additional information, Tommy Innes? No, Tommy said heavily. I don't. The day's events suddenly came crashing down on him, and he felt tears prickle at the corner of his eyes. But no, he wasn't awake. Purple seemed slightly in awe as he glanced around the room, probably looking for the speakers that Clementine's feminine voice emitted from. What he didn't know is that they were built into the walls in almost every room, though cameras were only in the hold, the security center, the bridge, and the hallways. I don't have clearance to do that, he said almost dreamily. Tubbo doesn't either, and he's my boss. Tubbo's your boss? Tommy asked. Purple nodded. Quartermaster falls under operations, so yeah. He laughed dryly. I have a kid that's younger than me as chief operations officer. Purple paused, saw Tommy's incredulous look, then inclined his head softly. He deserves it, though. Tubbo is brilliant. He is now. Tommy didn't attempt to keep the doubtfulness out of his voice. As brilliant as you are, Purple nodded, if you applied yourself. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, Tommy said. Both, Purple laughed, elbowing him, and Tommy was reminded of golden grass and scarlet skies and staring at the night sky, mapping constellations and talking about a ship they'd have of their own one day. His chest hurt briefly. That dream was never meant to be, though, as much as he had loved it. He's just a kid, a bit older than you by a few months, actually, but he's astute. He's the chief operations officer, so that means he has the primary responsibility of ensuring that the ship functions such that the use of the lateral sensory arrays does not interfere with one another. They must prioritize resource allocation so that the most critical activities can have every chance of success. If so required, they can curtail shipboard functions if they think they will interfere with the ship's current mission or routine operations, Tommy said robotically. Purple looked at him, surprised. Puffy made me memorize the book when I got in trouble. You must have gotten in trouble a lot, Purple said. Tommy shrugged. I memorized the book, so they moved me on to memorizing the ship's blueprints. Every time I got in trouble, badly, more than a brief scolding, Dad would hand over a piece of paper and I would get to draw the ship, room by room, centimeter by centimeter. You know, Purple said after a moment, it's still odd that people like Captain Puffy and Captain Sam were your family. Captain Sam was your father. Yes, he said. And I didn't actually know they were part of the Galactic Rebellion until I figured it out for myself. He grinned lazily. They weren't exactly secretive about it. I think they were waiting for me to figure it out myself. Still, Purple said, being aboard the HMS Fran, that must have been epic. Tommy laughed. It was more than epic, Purple, he said reproachfully. It was home. I was born there. I grew up planet hopping and going on missions, though I didn't know that at the time. It was just a ship in the end. As legendary as they were, nothing is invincible. He shrugged. It was just home to me. At promptly 700 the next day, Tommy heard a loud knock on the door. He grumbled, pulling the sheets over his head. Fuck off, he called, and rolled over and fell asleep. 5 seconds later, the sheets were taken off his head, and Tommy yelped at the wave of cold air, curling into a ball. Time to get up, Tubbo chirped, flicking on the lights. What the fucking hell, you bitch, he snarled, scrambling for a semblance of wrath, his sleeping clothes given to him by a passing human after Purple had shown him his room, suddenly thin. It's too early for this bullshit. This is the standard start to every morning, Tubbo told him. Well, it's not mine, so I'm going back to bed. Nope, Tubbo said, dodging Tommy, more like stepping back, but Tommy liked to think that he made a more astounding move than trying to blearily grab at the sheets in Tubbo's arms. Phil told me to show you around. No, convince you to join fleet school under Wilbur and Purple's proddings. So, oh, great, so you're a glorified babysitter, Tommy said through gritted teeth. Yep, Tubbo said, pulling a pair of clothes, sheesh, ship uniforms, from his shulker storage dimensional thingy. Look, Tommy wasn't very good at explanations at 7 a.m, and tossing them at Tommy's chest. Put those on. I'll be waiting outside. With that, he was gone. Tommy blinked, trying to comprehend what in the hell just happened as he stared at the fourth dimensional clothes in his hands. Man, fuck that guy. Any chance you could lock the door and I could go back to sleep? He asked Clementine hopefully, throwing a hand dramatically over his face. While the order would technically go through, I sincerely recommend you follow the chief operations officer. Also, I would have to notify Captain Filza of your negligence to follow Lieutenant Tubbo's management, and he would be less than pleased. So that's a no then. Clementine did not respond. Tommy was not any more awake when the clock read 713, and he stumbled out the door. Tubbo bounced on the balls of his heels, his data pad disappearing into the fourth dimension. Let's go get some breakfast. It's too early to have breakfast, he grumbled. Tubbo poked him in the arm. It's never too early for the most important meal of the day. Diligently, he followed Tubbo through the halls, half asleep on his feet. It felt like a fever dream, wandering through the halls, as if he was still asleep and this wasn't his body. He'd blink and lose a few seconds and wondered if he could fall asleep and still accompany Tubbo. He did fall asleep on his arms at the table as Tubbo walked off to find them a plate of food. He'd adamantly refused to stand in that line to get his own because his feet were dead, and so was he. Only to wake up to someone poking him in the arm. "I swear to God, Tubbo, if you've woken me up again," he muttered. Only to come face to face with Rambu. Tommy stared at the half-albino Endarian, suddenly wide awake. Rambu blinked at him, one green eye and one red. "I know you," Rambu said. "Yes," he answered, glancing nearby to see if anyone was convening near them. The most proximal crewmates were 2 tables down. The one called Bad and a blue-haired Merling were in a lover's affair, argument, disagreement, waving their heads loudly and making exclamations. "You do. Rambu." Rambu smiled. "I remember you a bit, I think." "You'd better. I'm super cool." "Purple told me, pieces," Rambu said cautiously, looking slightly overwhelmed as he shifted in his chair. Tommy reminded himself that Rambu didn't know him, not anymore, and this was not the same Endarian that he had shared jokes under a blood-red sky in fields of golden grass. This one did not remember, and the other remembered very little at all. Tommy swallowed, suddenly feeling sick. Oh God, Rambu didn't remember him except second-handed. Oh God, Purple hated him for walking away, for seeking revenge. He never said it, but Tommy knew that the human held some resentment for him leaving and getting captured and breaking his promise. Perhaps it was a childish one, but sometimes Tommy stared at his pinky and wondered if that pinky promise was broken. "I promise I'll come back, okay?" "Pinky swear?" He grins, wide and thin, and staring into dull magenta eyes. "Always," he says, "I'll come back alive." To the world, he breaks that promise. To himself, he sits, and he stares, and he cries. "Pinky swear," Rambu muttered, tilting his head and shaking his half-white, half-black hair. "You promised to come back." Tommy knew that he was trying to remember. He did that a lot until the end. He grinned half-heartedly. "Yeah, and I did, didn't I?" "You're late," Rambu said reproachfully. "It's been, years." "3," he said. "And I'm Tommy Innes. I arrive precisely when I mean to." "I didn't know you've read Lord of the Rings," Tubbo said delightfully, and Tommy jumped, glancing at Rambu, who looked slightly confused. "How much of that did you hear?" he asked nervously. Just the quote." "Why?" "No reason," he said hurriedly. "As for, reading, yeah, I dabble a bit. The prison had a library." "It did?" Tubbo said. "That's pretty cool." "They also killed people in there, Tubbo," Rambu reminded the COO helpfully. "Right," Tubbo said, as Tommy poked at some floating gray things in the milk in front of him. It had raspberries and blueberries and some brown sugar on top. "That's less good." "Yeah, it had the classics," Tommy said after a moment, "but they wouldn't give us data pads, so they were in old Terran format. Books." Tubbo whistled. "Damn, that's sick." That's what?" Tommy asked, choking on a mouthful of whatever the fuck the breakfast was, because it was from sweet hell and made his mouth sting with the pure sugariness. Rambu rolled his eyes. "Slang. It means cool." God, if he wasn't going to have an aneurysm from golden apples, he was going to have an aneurysm from the breakfast and Tubbo. Mostly Tubbo. "Can I just have golden apples?" he asked Tubbo. "No," the boy said. "Please," he said. "Just one?" Nurse sitting right here," Rambu said. "Hello? Maybe don't say that in front of a medical officer whose superior is trying to wean you off of drugs." He hesitated. "Right. How about, you just forget I said that." He paused. "Literally?" Tubbo choked on his cereal, death soup, breakfast. "What?" "It's a joke," Tommy deadpanned. Rambu said. Tommy stabbed his spoon in the Endarian's direction. "You're not laughing. It's a joke. Laugh." And so that was how he ended up in the med bay for the second time under 24 hours, trying not to scream as Lonnie shined a light in his eyes. "Lonnie, I think he's going to tear your eyes out," Rambu said from where he was twiddling his thumbs. Tommy had never seen a person before Rambu and after Rambu that had ever quite literally twiddled their thumbs. "I can take it," Tubbo's sister said dismissively. "No, you can't," Rambu replied nervously. Tommy pointed a finger at him, unable to give him a death stare because of the bright light on his face. I'm not done with you. How dare you fucking report me to that? Hey, Nikki. Hello, Tommy, Nikki said brightly as she entered the medbay, a hypo spray in her hand. Tommy batted Lonnie's hand away from his eye and scooted away quickly. Oh, no. Get that thing away from me. I will not be subjected to this. Ouch. What the fuck? Nikki stepped away, looking vaguely amused as she put the hypo spray down on a sterilized tray. You are aware that you're going to have to come back here for about a week for more of them. He gaped, rubbing at his neck. What? Up until we get to Tara, the Merling explained with a smile that Tommy was sure was filled with malice and not the warm smile she gave others. Then I'll hand you off to a medical officer who can continue your treatment if you're not already better, which you should be. But if you aren't, I'm not taking any chances. I'm fine, he said through gritted teeth. You're recovering from an addiction, she corrected. Tommy huffed, blowing a strand of his hair out of his eyes. Next week, I'm sending you to bed. I don't need to see a therapist. Nikki threw up her hands. Fine, be my guest, but you are going to get those hypo sprays so we can remove the remnants of the golden apples from your bloodstream. Or so help me, I will strap you down and force you to remain in medbay for the rest of your journey. Author of this portrayed Tommy perfectly. She did. She really did. I read this and I can hear like Tommy actually saying this. It's perfect. I don't even want to go to Tara, he muttered. You're lucky Captain Phil's choosing to vouch for you, Nikki said absently, and Tommy forced the wave of surprise down at that. Sure, maybe he'd expected at most Wilbur to vouch for him, and Purpled for sure, but Philza, the captain? He'd spoken like 12 words to him. See, Tubbo said, you can join fleet school and join the crew in a couple years. Tubbo, it takes at least 7 years to graduate, Nikki said reproachfully. Just because it took you 3 and you enrolled at 11 and were the top 1% of your class doesn't really mean anything. You had excellent schooling as a child and, well, not really supportive parents, but they signed off the papers for you to join the crew at 14. Rambu tentatively raised his hands. I didn't even go to fleet school, nor did Purpled. Right, but that's because of your special circumstances, Nikki said with a slight inclination of her smile as she gestures Lonnie through some tool movements, teaching and talking at the same time. I don't think that command would have been pleased to lose one of their top medical officers and security officers. They definitely would have left had Purple been forced planetside. She sighed. I'm glad they weren't. Wait, you mean Ponk and Puns? Tommy asked. Nikki nodded. Yes, I'm sure you're aware they're Purple brothers. We argued with command about forcing them planetside. They were she met Rambu's eyes, the Andarian nodding slowly. Survivors of the Red Planet's genocide, if you weren't aware. I was, he said haltingly. Ah, Nikki said. Yes, well, they would have faced publicity because of that. And as kids, we didn't really want that. Lonnie grinned. Attachment, she said. I was new to the ship because our parents passed. Her voice hitched slightly, but she continued on. But I got attached to Rambu. He was interested in medicine, and I thought the condition he was in was fascinating. No offense, Rambu, she added as an afterthought. The Andarian shrugged. None taken, he said. I found it pretty interesting myself, though we never really found out why my body has the reaction it does to non-Andarian food. So I decided to stick around. And you're right, I don't like flashing cameras anyway. The paparazzi wanted to see you, Tommy asked. He hadn't thought about that. He hadn't thought what he'd left them to when he'd gone for revenge. A sick human and an amnesiac Andarian, neither of whom fully remembered the story. Lonnie scoffed. Oh, did they ever? The L'Manberg was already an enigma because of me and Tubbo, being kids and all that jazz. But then we got the temporary joke name Orphanage, and Mr. Techno got all mad. He doesn't like orphans, Nikki said. Somehow that made Tommy let out a small choking laugh. So that rumor was dispelled quickly. We had half the age requirements and twice as much to prove, though. But Captain Philza made it work. This ship wasn't new, but the crew was, Tubbo said, stretching and leaning against Rambu like a cat. Tommy tilted his head at the form. Rambu had to be twice as tall as Tubbo. The old one died from mushroom spores. It wasn't mushroom spores. It was Campignon. Never mind, Nikki sighed. But yeah, it was a whole ordeal. We were patrolling Sector 74B, Classic newbie flagship duties, not even near the border. But then we got a distress call, and command told us we were the closest. So we went for it. The room was quieter now, and Tommy had a feeling he knew who had sent that distress call. By the time we reached Pogtopia, Nikki said in a low whisper, her eyes solemn and sad, 3,000 children were dead. There were other casualties, soldiers, guards, whatever, but all that mattered was that there were 3,000 children dead. Had we arrived days earlier, we could have saved hundreds. She shook her head, her steady hands shaking from where they lay on her lap. It was a long few months. Purpled and Rambu are all that remain. Tommy met Rambu's eyes, the Andarian blinking at him questioningly, and Tommy shook his head. The missions have been a bit easier since then, but none as hard. Rambu and Purpled stuck to us like glue, and we haven't let go since. You're a kid, you can join, Lonnie said. I'm not sure that's how joining a crew works, he told her absent-mindedly, lost a bit in his memories. Lonnie frowned. I haven't finished school, she told him. I gotta stay with Tubbo because our guardians are dead, and now Nikki and Era are our official guardians. So I'll take a few courses on shore leave when we drop you off. Probably a month or so, enough for a few classes. And then, boom, back to the ship. At this rate, you'll graduate in 12 years, Tubbo said dryly. Lonnie said. I'm already basically part of the crew. Technically, I'm a cadet, but around here, I'm a junior nurse. Rambu is a nurse as well, though he's a senior nurse. He never went to fleet school, but he did complete his schooling, even if it was on an odd place. Rambu winced slightly, and Tommy was reminded of a schoolhouse full of laughter and a boarding house with roommates. I graduated in 3 years, Tubbo grinned, meeting Tommy's eyes. I dare you to do better. Later, Tommy would find that he took that dare to heart. All right, that is the end of chapter 5. All right, let's see. Oh, my goodness. All right. Chapter 6. Suck it, green boy. You left the parking brake on. Yo! Suck it, green boy. Wilbur said. I love the quotes at the beginning of each chapter. It's just so good. Why is he on the bridge? Wilbur demanded, making eye contact from his chair as Tubbo and Tommy walked aboard, Tubbo saluting Phil half-heartedly. Tommy had a massive shit-eating grin on his face. Well, it was either that, or leave me with Purpled and Rambu, he said, glancing out the window. They appeared to be over a planet, fueling up, it seemed, and just getting ready to leave that morning. He couldn't believe it had only been an hour and a half since Tubbo had woken him. He'd stolen a wake-up hypospray from Nikki when she hadn't been looking. Rambu, fortunately, had turned a blind eye, had helped loads, but his eye was twitching, and his hands were tapping against his thigh. Maybe he should have just drunk coffee. Techno eyed him, but returned to shifting through holograms of paperwork, doing what Philza didn't want to, probably, sipping from a mug of the good stuff every so often. Dream had his forehead leaning against his desk, resting his eyes as the bridge awaited the transmission that announced that their fuel receptors were satisfied. The quotes are funny, but Tommy's backstory is making me so sad. Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse. Don't worry. Yeah, anything that has happened so far, it gets worse. So, yeah. But yeah, Tommy's backstory is just heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. Okay. Tubbo took his seat at the operations desk, and Tommy was immediately astounded by the new holographic technology his father had manufactured, his alone in their 15-year voyage in space, but they'd been mostly cut off from command. A voice cutting through the air made Tommy tear his gaze away from the equations and speed that Tubbo's fingers flew across his desk as he sorted through papers and trashed them or handed them off to Techno by sliding them across the air. Lieutenant Finn to Captain Philza, the man said, his voice ringing out clearly through the bridge. The fuel cells are completely energized, sir. We're clear to leave. Thank you, mate, Phil said, a small smile that Finn, the chief engineer, couldn't possibly see on his face. The transmission ended. Dream, get her moving. Huh? Dream said, starting, his blonde hair messy and his eyes red. Oh yeah, sure. Tommy watched with vivid interest as Dream's figures moved across the controls, flicking switches and causing a slight hum, when listened to closely, to fill the air of the ship. When he had first left the HMS Fran, he had been unable to sleep, not because of the lack of silence, but because of the silence itself. The humming of the ship had been a missing leg to him, as much as the deaths of his family were. It was another thing missing, another puzzle piece that could never come home. He had slept fitfully for weeks in the prison until Chroma had picked him up. On the Red Planet, he had been able to rest, at least for a bit. Now, of course, he was back to not resting because of the experimentation. Maximum warp dream, Philza said, fortunately, interrupting Tommy from his dreary thoughts. Punch it. Aye, aye, Captain, Dream said. The ship didn't move. Have you disengaged the external inertial dampener? Technoblade asked, as if this were an everyday occurrence. Dream glared at him. Yes, shut up. Wow, you're a shitty pilot, Tommy commented. The blonde-haired helmsman rolled his eyes. Fine, if it's so easy, you do it, he said. That sounds like a terrible idea, Tubbo commented. Tommy smirked, walking over. Watch and learn, idiot, he said. I swear to God, if he fucks up this ship, Philza warns. Yet he didn't move, as if they were waiting for someone. They didn't move to stop him, and Dream left his seat so Tommy could read the labels. Clementine, he said, clearly crinkling his nose at the holographic controls that Dream had out, changed the driving mode to alpha male. What? Tuckno started? Of course, Tommy. He watched with joy as Sam's code programmed into Clementine's interface took effect, changing the controls into red and white and yellow, and interfacing them the way he liked. Noises of surprise sounded out around the room as Tommy cracked his knuckles. Now this was like old times. This was like the HMS Fran, which was like his aunt and his father were alive again next to him, teaching him the controls one by one. Oh yeah, he said, this is a throwback. He tilted his head slightly, thinking about what the problem could be. Clementine, what is the rotational axis of the flight dish? 9.3 degrees, Tommy. He tapped his chin thoughtfully, squeezing his eyes shut and trying to remember his father's words. Make that 89.7, please. A silence. Tommy twisted his spinny chair around to stare at Tubbo. Ahem. Aren't you the operations chief person? Tubbo said, staring at him with big brown eyes. He snapped his fingers. Get to it, Chief Operations Officer. Tubbo gulped and nodded, turning and tapping his fingers across his desk furiously. Stupid idiot fuelers, Tommy muttered. Must have knocked the disc off course. Tommy, Tubbo said. Tommy turned to look at him. Disc is at 89.7. Hold on a second, Techno barked. Are you sure he isn't going to kill us? Isn't the optimal disc rotation 90? Dream asked, holding up a hand to stop Techno from moving over and potentially unseating Tommy. That's what the manual says, Tommy said, rolling his eyes as he scanned the positional accords. You guys know Puffy, Captain Puffy? I learned a few tricks from her. She says that the manual is batshit and to burn it in fire. He shrugged. I've read all the manuals on the ship, but not that one. You got lessons from Puffy? Wilbur asked, sounding shocked. Yeah, he said, thinking about his aunt and smiling as he remembered her kind lessons and warm hands around his. He'd never flown alone. He'd never flown alone before Tubbo even. Even he had been there to fly a fighter, but it was easy to take his lessons and apply them to situations, even if there was the absence of warmth from held hands. Yo, Clementine, how many cores does this ship have? 9, Tommy. The 10th was traded 4 missions ago to a group of colonists. Yeah, I don't care, he said, waving his hands. Just curious. Nothing to do with flying. Dream blinked at him with green eyes. So, do you know the problem? He scoffed. What am I, 5? I solved it the minute I looked over your shoulder. I was just fixing your shit. Like your disc rotational axis. It would have bugged Puffy, so I stopped her from rolling over in her space grave. Audibly, Tubbo choked, and Wilbur looked appalled at his apathy. People made dead family jokes all the time, right, though? It was a healthy coping mechanism. Or unhealthy one. He wasn't sure and wasn't going to find out. Philza cleared his throat. If you don't mind telling the rest of the crew, he said, amusement clear in his voice, what exactly was the problem? Tommy dismissed his controls, immediately missing the red holograms as he stepped away, tilting his head and smiling. You forgot the parking brake. Dream gaped at him. There is no way. He sat down and paused, coughing slightly as he flipped a switch, the lights on the desk turning green. "Ready for warp, Captain." Philza laughed, shaking his head. "Kids amaze me," he sighed. "Not a kid," Tommy reminded him. "Sure," Techno drawled. "Punch it," Philza said, as Tommy opened his mouth to argue with the annoying half-piglin crew member. Dream pulled the lever, and Tommy watched with glimmering eyes as the stars stretched into lines of pure light and they entered warp speed. He shook his head, laughing to himself, feeling the looks upon the back of his head as he walked away, entering the elevator and inputting the codes that he'd memorized from Sapnap. Perhaps he would find a way to get some golden apples from Carl. No, Nikki would be mad, and then he'd have to endure more needles from hyposprays. Maybe he'd get some chocolate. Yeah, chocolate sounded good. Tommy was still smiling when the doors shut on the dumbstruck faces of the bridge crew. After sitting in his room and giving Clementine strict orders to tell everyone who tried to enter that he wasn't here for about 4 hours, Tommy grew bored and hungry. Clearly, Tubbo had been ordered to be his babysitter all day, but he'd felt the ship's engines drop out of warp. They shouldn't have. They should have been in warp until they reached Terra. Something had happened, but it wasn't anything bad by the lack of red alerts and alarms. Tommy got the inkling of a feeling that they were making another stop, not for fueling, at another planet, perhaps for a diplomatic mission. Unfortunately, despite having some give since he was the son of Clementine's creator, he wasn't actually a crew member and didn't have any clearance above civilian, which sucked, but it was whatever. Besides, he hated diplomatic missions. "Hey, Clementine," he asked, after watching the ball he'd been throwing against the wall roll under the table across the room. "Yes, Tommy?" "Where's Tubbo?" "As Alpha Shift has just ended, the Chief Operations Officer is currently in the gym with Captain Philza and Commander Techno. Lieutenant Soot." He waved her off, standing up and stretching. "I don't give a fuck about Wilbur," he said. "That is untrue, Tommy." He snorted. "Yeah, whatever. How do I get to the gym?" "It is the place the gym has always been on for flagships, Tommy. Nothing has much changed." Tommy sighed, running a hand through his hair and debating grabbing a pair of scissors and chopping through his overgrown locks. Eventually deciding against it, he stalked to the door and unlocked it with a few deft taps of the button. Well, he didn't exactly have the entire ship's blueprints memorized anymore. Tommy did know where the gym was, though it was less of a gym and more of a stadium. "Hey, Tommy," Rambu greeted him as he rounded a corner, nearly bumping into the tall Andarian. "Where have you been for the past few hours? The bridge was in an uproar." He tilted his head. "Tubbo told me what happened." Tommy grimaced. Rambu was a confusing element to his life. He was a survivor of the Red Planet's genocide, yet he didn't remember a thing of that planet, or his life before that. So it was odd knowing him, and yet not. It was an enigma he had yet to figure out, and he hated not knowing things. Some might call it obsessive. Tommy liked to call it being prepared. Purpled was the same way, except worse. So, yeah, Rambu was Rambu, and Tommy had saved him, and Tommy knew him, had spent his best and worst moments, had shared classes and jokes that Rambu would never remember. Perhaps they could be friends again. Technically, they were, but both of them danced around a line of confusion because Tommy wouldn't talk about it. Rambu wouldn't know, and Purple was just cross all the time. Cross at Tommy for not sharing, furious at the world for this mess, bitter at his dreams for being nightmares. "I was in my room," Tommy admitted after a moment, trying not to connect the dots between a skinny and malnourished Indarian who cried in his hands as his mind failed him, and the person who stood in front of him, an ensign to a ship that was full of other kids and brilliant people. Rambu frowned. "Huh, Wilbur tried to find you to get you to explain, but Clementine says you weren't there." "Clementine's on my side," he said with a grin. "Don't I outrank you?" Tommy was reminded that Rambu didn't know that he was Captain's son and Captain Sam's son and Captain Puffy's nephew. Purpled, bless him, hadn't told a soul. Though that might have been out of bitterness and not because Purpled had wanted to keep Tommy's secret. "Yes, Ensign," he said. "Seeing as my ship's gone, my rank no longer stands." Rambu winced. "Fortunately, Clementine understands privacy." Rambu sighed. "I'll go inform the bridge that you didn't jump ship or rig the engine to blow up." Rambu hesitated. Can you even do that? Tommy grinned. It was an answer, and it wasn't a verbal one, though it made Rambu pale slightly. He'd forgotten how gullible the Endarian was. Some things never change. Many things did. Ensign Rambu was being dramatic, Tommy. Had you attempted to endanger the crew in any way or leave the ship in the middle of warp, I would have locked down the sector and informed the bridge. It was my estimation that you two, despite Ensign Rambu's amnesia, that you two still remain friends, as you are with Quartermaster Purple. He threw up his hands as he continued to walk down the white hallways, turning corners like he knew the blueprints from the back of his hand, which, of course, he very nearly did. I don't know, Clementine, he grumbled. It's like we know each other, but we don't at the same time. It's really awkward. He doesn't remember me, but Purple and I know we should, and I don't want to remember what happened. Perhaps you should do what the chief civilian officer calls talking things out. He raised an eyebrow. That guy sounds like a bitch. Tubbo would not appreciate the title you are giving to his guardian. Tommy snorted. Clementine almost sounded reproachful. Also, Tubbo's guardian as the chief civilian officer, what had his name been? Erect? He couldn't quite remember, and that annoyed him. Whatever, it didn't matter. Think of another alternative, Clementine, he muttered. Talking it out isn't going to work. Talking about what? Wilbur asked curiously. Tommy yelled, what the fuck? I didn't go phantom form, Wilbur told him, as if knowing what he was going to ask. I just caught sight of you while heading to the gym. Oh, hey, that's where I'm going too, he said. Sorry, I had to switch to YouTube because my Twitch stopped working. It's log though. Hey, log. It's fine. YouTube works too. That's why I stream on both. Can I join you on your walk? No, bitch, he said. Tommy? He sighed. Fine, Will bitch. That's a terrible nickname, Wilbur told him, not even sounding annoyed, more amused, putting his hands at the small of his back. What a fucking forward prick. I've heard worse from better people. He snarled angrily, kicking at the nearest wall and missing. Wilbur watched him with slight amusement, and Tommy really wanted to strangle him. You know, Wilbur said, I don't get why you hate me. I don't hate you, he corrected the older boy. You're an insufferable idiot, but I hate very few people. Yet you saved my life, the Phantom noted softly, and knew of the alleged return of Chroma. He hesitated. Command already knew. Tommy's head whipped around to stare at Wilbur, who had a somber look about him. What? Yeah, Wilbur sighed, rubbing his forehead. There have been more sightings, more rumors. Yours greatly confirms it, though, because you're the sole survivor of the HMS Fran. And why didn't they tell the survivors of the Red Planet? He demanded. I don't know either, Wilbur hissed. They're probably going to be targeted, Tommy retorted. They're the only ones that know the truth about the Red Planet and Pogtopia. He gestured wildly with his hands, and Wilbur stepped out of the way neatly to avoid being whacked in the face. If they die, then nobody knows. Tommy paused. Right? Yeah, that's correct, Wilbur sighed. They gave statements to command via comm calls, but nothing more, and that was years ago. They couldn't be ordered to give any official stories because Eric stepped in and claimed mental health issues. First with Ramu because, amnesia, and then with Purple because it might be damaging and bring back traumatic flashbacks. Command backed off a bit, but when Purple turns 18, they'll start harassing us until he tells. Tommy ticked off a few fingers, counting the days in his head. That's in 8 months? No, 7. Wilbur tilted his head. Huh, you know his birthday. Tommy blinked at him. But yes, he hasn't told a soul, not even his brothers. We know a bit, but not a lot. I believe him when he says he doesn't remember, only what the leader of the Children's Rebellion told him when he was sick. Tommy frowned. He hadn't thought of himself as a leader. Purple and Rambu had been too sick to listen anyway, and the other 3 had just followed him and made their decisions based on the shitty plans he'd created. Perhaps, had they been better, he could have saved them. Perhaps they could be there, the 6 of them, like the 6 stars upon the flag, together, smiling. 3 will their faces above ground again. 1 does not remember, and still another lies angry, unwilling to talk to anyone. The last is stubborn. He refuses to admit what happened. He blames himself, even though he was a child, and there was close to nothing he could have done. Still, he keeps his lost heart inside, and he laughs, and he covers up the pain that hides behind his eyes. Tommy closed his eyes and hid the world behind it. His world, his family's. He closed his eyes, and he smiled, and he laughed, and he made stupid jokes, and everything was fine. At night, he curled up like Purpled, awash with the sounds of gunfire, and eyes that no longer see this plane of existence. Because of him. Because of him. It was his fault. Everything was his fault. Leader, he murmured. Is that what he was? A leader to death, maybe. Wilbur mistook Tommy's words for a question and nodded. Yes, they had a leader. He went missing. He wasn't gone with the rest of them. That audible silence in the middle of Wilbur's sentence is louder than his voice. But he's dead now. He left, and we never found him. Chroma killed him. So confident, Tommy thought. And yet, what were they supposed to think? That he had been alive, dwelling in a prison, after attempting to chase down an avian that had already murdered 3,270 other children? What were they supposed to think? He was another nameless boy that Purple had not specified, another face to join the bodies. Just another person, another name lost to history. He had seen the murals in the halls, painted on the ship's walls to commemorate one of the first missions the L'Manberg had ever flown. Also, arguably one of the worst missions in Galactic Rebellion history in him, if the sick looks on Wilbur and Techno and Phil's faces said anything. He had seen the name wall, and he knew that his fake name, Timothy David, was on there somewhere. Or perhaps Purple had quietly erased it, and nobody had bothered to count the names. He had felt sick when he had gazed upon that wall and seen a name that had made him turn on his heels and walk away. He could not do this. He wasn't strong enough. He had never been strong enough. Was it difficult, he asked. What? Wilbur asked him distractedly. To see the videos, he said, of the executions. Wilbur's head whipped around to stare at him, blinking with white light as he fought to control his phantom form. You've seen those? And Tommy had slipped up. He had wondered, and he had made a mistake, and so now he had to lie. Yeah, the red planet was in neutral space, remember? The arachnids got a hold of a copy and forced us to watch. He swallowed, the deceit heaving in his stomach. It wasn't pretty. No, Wilbur said, curiosity and disbelief written all over his face. It wasn't. He stands there in the crowd, Finn left, with Rambu and Purpled in the caves, and he sees, redacted, with the gun to their head and their chin held high. Redacted's wings are shackled to the ground, and Redacted sheds tears of regret and resilience. Tommy does not have a gun. He has other people to protect. If he dies here, then Rambu and Purpled fall. If he dies here, then there is nobody left for his other friends. Redacted catches his eye as the gun is put to their head. The crowd is silent, but there are no tears left to fall upon the dead and frozen ground of the famine. The children of Pogtopia look on with dark eyes as their peers are murdered in front of them, and they can do nothing because they are children and have no power, no guns, no influence. Tommy looks at Redacted in their torn and dirty outfit, their telltale paint cans missing from her pocket. They are thin and gangly and far too pale. He can see the bones of their jaw and their collarbones poked too far out. He moves to step forward, and Redacted too, shakes their head at him, and someone, he doesn't know who, and he never learns, hauls him back as he cries, silent tears pouring down his face. Redacted raises their right hand, their point, and raises 3 fingers, their pointer, thumb, and middle finger, the sign of the children's rebellion. Redacted smiles at him, cold and sad and full of anger. And then Chroma calls the order, and they fall. Tommy's scream is only within him, but he is rooted to the spot as he is forced to watch, as the phasers fire and his friends die. He is forced to watch with someone's arm around his stomach so he does not rush off and do something stupid. A sob rises in his chest as Redacted's wings go limp, their eyes staring into nothingness. As Redacted's green orbs close one last time, their hands still raised in rebellion. I agree, Log. It's so sad. It's so sad. It's so sad, Log. I agree. Yeah. There's not really much more I can say to that. It's very sad. Okay. He didn't want to see those videos. He had never seen those videos. He didn't need to. The memories, firsthand, lie within him forever. As much as he wished for them to be gone, he didn't want to forget. He was jealous and envious of Rambu for his inability to remember, forever to only know secondhand, and yet he would never forget them. He was saddened that Rambu would never remember. A mix of emotions, his fucking ass. They were only children, Wilbur said. Only children. Tommy knew that. Part of him deep inside knew that he was still a child, that he should tell someone, that Purpled had every right to betray his trust and spill his secret. And yet, at the same time, he didn't want the media's attention and the crew on him. He wanted to leave and never look back. He wanted to, selfishly, wave goodbye and leave the problems to people who did not have nightmares and flashbacks and cried when nobody was looking. He wanted to turn his back and run. And yet, the past always catches up with you. Might as well rip off the Band-Aid now. He was not strong enough. Not now, and not ever. So that's the end of chapter 6. So that is where I wanted to end for today. So let's just do this. Yeah. All right. So that's the end of chapter 6. How we get through chapters 4? Just how you're going to get through it. So the way I got through it when I was reading it the first time, I was reading it at 4 a.m., I think. I had started it. One of my other mutuals on TikTok, Bluxel, she recommended it to me, and I had started reading it. I think it was like Friday night at like 10 or something. And so I started reading it, and I could not put it down. So I got to the worst chapters of the book around like 4 a.m. or something, and I was tired, but I knew I could not put it down. And so what I did is I had my phone. I was reading it on my phone. Books at 4 a.m. are so much better. They really are. I don't know what it is, but they really are so much better. But I took my phone and I was pacing up and down the hall of my dorm, just like staring at my phone. It was terrible. It was absolutely horrific. But yeah. So when we get to the worst chapters, I'll probably only do 1 chapter per stream, just because they're so heavy that I think that like you literally cannot do more than one of them in one day. That seems like something I'd do. Yeah. But well, yeah, when we get to the more intense, like this is weak sauce comparatively. So I do 2 chapters a stream because that's about an hour. When we get to the more heavy stuff, when we get to the more heavy stuff, I'll probably switch to doing 1 chapter per stream, just because it's heavy. It is heavy stuff. Heavy. But that's fine because I'm debating. So my plan was, the reason why I started doing this is because my plan was to, it's going to be more descriptive, isn't it? Oh yeah. We get the full backstory. You just heard the execution. There's like other stuff. There's other stuff that goes on. So yeah. But essentially my plan, my hope in doing this was to prepare for the release of the sequel, which is coming out on, I think it's on Friday actually. Oh my gosh, it's on Friday. So May 6th, the sequel is getting released. And my hope was to like finish the whole fic in time for the sequel to come out. But I think what I might do instead is just keep streaming like every day or so until I finish this fic. Let's prepare mentally because now I'm invested. Oh, you're so invested. Aria does an amazing job of just getting you hooked like from the beginning. She's so good. Oh my gosh. But my hope is to just keep streaming every night or so, probably every weekday night, unless I'm busy with prepping for finals, until I finish reading the entire fic. And then I'm going to keep streaming, hopefully preparing, reading either The Children's Revenge, which is the sequel. I'll either be reading that or I'll switch to another fic until all of the chapters of The Children's Revenge have been released. I don't know what her schedule is going to be for uploading chapters of that. So if it looks like I will catch up to the end of Children's Revenge before she finishes it, I might just switch and read a different fanfic. Maybe I'll do Passerine. That could be interesting because I haven't read Passerine in a while, and I have I got a print copy of it. So I have like an actual book of Passerine. I'll send you a picture on Discord later, Log, but it's literally like an actual physical book. It's so cool. Yes. Yeah, it's so cool. It's so pretty too. And it's like, so I had to explain to my parent that you love that thing. I know, it's so good. It was probably one of the first ones I ever read. I think what got me into fan fiction was hearing everyone talk about Passerine, Flowers from 1984, and Heat Waves. So I read Passerine and Flowers from 1984 or 1970. Have I seen the status? Yes! Oh my gosh. I did not read the fan fiction before watching that video because I didn't realize. And so I watched it. It was also your first. Yes! I feel like Passerine has reached such a level in the fandom that it's like everyone has heard of it, at least at this point. 1970? Yeah, Flowers from 1970. So I read Passerine and Flowers from 1970 at about the same time. I didn't end up reading Heat Waves because I took a look at the tags and I was like, some of that looks a little sketchy. But I liked Flowers from 1974, but I loved Passerine. So I ended up, most of the fics I read on AO3 are SBI fics. Actually, wait. I have this, I can bring up my subscriptions on AO3. Let me see. My subscriptions. Here we go. So essentially, these are the works that I've still haven't read. Flowers from 1970. Is it any good? So it is good. Okay, let me come back to my face. Some of the stuff between Wilbur and Nikki is boundary breaking in that they're they're implied to be romantically involved, not sexually, but like I think they're dating in the fic. So it is boundary breaking in that regard, which I did not realize at the time I read it. But I think it was pretty good. So, and it is a Dream and George centered fic, but it is still very good. So, yeah, it's just, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back on it now, I realized that it does kind of, it's not like bad. It's like Wilbur is like a side character and he's dating Nikki, who's also a side character. And that goes against Wilbur and Nikki saying like they don't want to be shipped together. So I didn't realize it at the time. But yeah, so that's the only like negative to it, is that, you know, technically it's boundary breaking. I still think it's a good fic. I just think that it's like, it's not something I can recommend in good consciousness to most people without telling them, like, the creators have said, like, don't do this, and this fic does this. So yeah, that's the reason why I haven't read Heat Waves is or Accelerate. Oh my gosh. It's because those fics clearly break boundaries about not safe for work stuff. Admittedly, before I burned that. Same. Okay, so when I didn't ship them, I thought when I joined the fandom, they were actually dating. Like, I thought they were actually dating. And then I learned, so I didn't like ship them. I just assumed that they were dating. I don't really get into ships as much as other people do, just because like I always find it weird speculating on people's like private life and stuff like that. So if I ship anyone, I tend to ship characters, and mostly platonically. Like, yeah, mostly platonically. I ship characters, not content creators, and not romantically. But yeah, I just thought they were dating because you would go back and watch their videos, and they're such close friends. Oh God, I know, right? Like how. I wish. Okay, so I'll have to find a screenshot of it. But essentially, I was Googling. What was I looking up? I wasn't Googling. I was on AO3. I was looking up. Tommy in it isn't your personal iPhone charger. Where is that? It's in here somewhere. Next. So I was looking for this. Let me bring it up so you can see it better. So I was looking for this fic right here. Tommy in it isn't your personal iPhone charger. Very good superhero fic. But when I typed in Tommy in it isn't your personal iPhone charger on AO3, for some reason, a fic came up that was an Exile Canon Divergent fic that had the tags rape, underage, Tommy in it, and Dream. And I was like, no, that's like so weird. They're people. You can't do that to them. Like, what? It's just astonishing to me that people actually do that. I know, right? Okay, so I screenshotted it and I can see if I can find it. I screenshotted it. I'll send it to you, but it was the most disgusting thing. It was like, this is a minor and these are real people. Why? It was so bad. Anyway, what was I talking about? I was talking, so is it fucking adult? Yeah, I know, right? I know. It's like so weird. It's so weird. Yeah, so essentially, creepy stuff aside, the fics I read on AO3 tend to be very SPI centered, with the exception of this one, 19 Flowers from 1970. Very good. So like Sir Cantus is really good. I read a lot of their works, and this one is very good. Mondiu. So Mondiu and where is it? So Mondiu and The Dead Don't Dream are very good works that I like. I like them a lot, but they're super angsty. So if I decide to take a break between reading The Children's Rebellion and The Children's Revenge, I'll probably read one or both of those. So that, oh, excuse me, that'll be fun. That'll be fun though. Those fics are really good. But I like a lot of superhero fics as well. Like, oh, Tommy, have you read Tommy and it's? I'm just gonna come to you for fanfics. Please, I love fanfics. I've gotten so many different recommendations. It's not funny. It's not funny. Like, oh, where is it? So history. My history is weird, but like marked for later. I have some stuff marked here. I need to go through and clear this out. But some of like I have some Lord of the Rings stuff in there as well. But like I have so many fics that I want to read that are just it's not even funny. Also, I went here. Wait, let me bring it up. Also, I went on a posting spree today with all of my works because I wrote like a ton over the weekend. And I just finally had the brain energy to sit down and edit them and tag them and post them today. So I posted like 6 works or something. It was a lot. It was a lot. But yeah. So anyway, let's see. It is 11:50. So I think I'm going to end stream. I'm going to end TikTok first just because that's the easiest. So TikTok people, hello. Thank you guys for watching. Most of them are one-shots, yeah. Please follow if you have not already. If you want to come on over, I'll probably be live for a few more minutes on Twitch or YouTube. Links in my bio. And yeah, thank you guys for sticking around. Hope it was fun, even if you couldn't see the fic because of, TikTok limitations. But anyway, love y'all. Bye. Come on. There we go. Okay. Yes. Follow Rizzo. Great content. Yes. Thank you. Yes. All right. So let's see. I'm trying to decide. I don't know if your whatchamacallit, Twitch is working again, but I think I might raid someone. Let me see. Who's still live. Okay. Let me do. Oh, I like Cat Liente. Have you ever watched Cat Liente log? She's very good. She does good streaming advice. So I think let's see what she's doing. She's doing League of Legends. Perfect. All right. Let's see. Let's pull this up.
You got him. Nice.
Oh.
I got a little scared there for a sec.
All right. So yes, Twitch is working now. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming, log. I'll keep you updated via Discord. I'll probably go live tomorrow around the same time. So yeah, I'm glad this time works for you though. So yeah. All right. Let's see. Start raid to Cat Liente. Okay. There you go. All right. Thank you for coming out, log. I'm glad you're enjoying the fic. Yeah, be sure to, if you have anything you want to say in DMs about it, just feel free to rant to me about it all you want. So anyway, bye. Let's see, and